Coaching Systems LLC presents Coaching the Lift Truck Operator 3. Session 1. Pre-Start Safety Considerations. Welcome to the Coaching the Lift Truck Operator 3 course. This course represents the third edition of the original course, which was first introduced in 1994. You will find that this comprehensive course utilizes the latest OSHA training requirements and guidelines regarding formal training, evaluation, and practical, hands-on training for all powered industrial trucks. Since 1994, Coaching Systems trainers have conducted thousands of training classes, and we are thankful for the valuable feedback we have received over the years from both participants and trainers. Many recommendations from lift truck operators, trainers, and other safety professionals are incorporated in this course. Pre-start safety inspection. Before starting, be certain that you are familiar with your organization's policies for inspecting your truck. It's clear from OSHA that lift trucks must be examined before each shift. Try to do your inspection the same way each time. Doing so will make your inspection become a habit and help you avoid missing or skipping key inspection points. Be certain to review any previous inspection lists to ensure that any noted defects have been corrected before operating. Remember, there are many reasons to inspect your truck. OSHA requires it, it's your employer's policy, and it shows your concern for the safety of your coworkers. All of these are good reasons to inspect and, in turn, operate a safe lift truck. However, this is one case where you also might want to be selfish. Remember, it's your neck on the line. Protect yourself and don't become complacent when inspecting your truck. It's very difficult, or perhaps impossible, to predict when a defect might actually occur. Depending on the truck you operate, the location and functions of the controls may vary. Different trucks may even have a different feel. If you are going to operate a different lift truck than the one you normally operate, be certain you become familiar with these differences before starting. For example, if your truck has been taken out of service and you are assigned a new or different truck, take the time to get familiar with the controls and movement of that particular truck. Be sure to check the truck's manual for any specific concerns or questions you may have. Do you know the location of the truck's manual? As you begin your inspection, walk entirely around the truck, noting the overall appearance, the condition of the hydraulics, including any oil leaks. Check the stability of the overhead guard. Note that this operator is using a checklist to ensure nothing is overlooked. Pay particular attention to any damage, such as broken attachments or loose parts. Inspect the carriage and mast, forks and locking pins, and any other attachments. Check that the fire extinguisher's inspection tag is up to date. Take the time to remind yourself of any restrictions and limitations of the truck by looking at the ID plate. Should the ID plate be missing or is hard to read, notify your supervisor and do not operate the truck. Be certain to read and understand the meaning of any warning and safety decals. Next, get in the truck. Remember, when entering or exiting your sit-down truck, always face the truck. This method will go a long way to reducing any slips and falls. Check that the safety belt is in good working order and check that it is free of damage that could impair its ability to keep you seated securely. Never start or move the truck without first fastening the safety belt. Start the truck and note any unusual noises. Check the gauges and controls. Test that the lift operates properly, checking that both the lift and mast are responsive for each movement. move the truck forward and back. As you do, test the brakes and horn. A special note here. Test the brakes in an area that, if they fail, you don't hit something or go off a leading edge.
Just briefly.
If you find any defects before, during, or after your shift that would prevent you or others from operating the truck safely, that truck should be taken out of service until the defects are corrected. Remember to review any items that need correction with authorized personnel. If you have not been trained to work on the equipment, don't try to fix it. Question number 1.
I've been told I might have to attend a refresher course. Why?
The operator has operated the truck in an unsafe manner. The operator has been involved in an accident or near miss. The operator has received a not satisfactory evaluation. The operator has been assigned a new or different truck on which he or she has not received previous training. The workplace has changed in such a way that could affect safe operation of the truck. Coaching reminders. Use a checklist. Don't become complacent. You can't predict when a defect might occur. Everyone's safety depends on a thorough pre-start inspection. Session 2. Design considerations. To move material safely, regardless of the type of truck you operate, there are some key operating techniques to keep in mind. Scanning ahead, overhead, and to the sides as you travel. Approaching the load straight on. Making sure the load is stable. Keeping the load low while moving. In addition, according to OSHA's training requirements, understanding the stability triangle is critical to safely operating a lift truck. Take a look at this diagram of the 3-point suspension. As you can see, the 3 points form a triangle. When your lift truck is unloaded, the center of gravity is here. When loaded, the center of gravity shifts forward like this. Remember, if the center of gravity moves outside this triangle, your truck will tip to either side or forward. Other factors that can contribute to moving your center of gravity outside of the stability triangle include, but are not limited to, traveling with the load raised, a load not centered on the forks or other attachments, traveling too fast around corners, making sharp turns, traveling across an incline, overloads, and sudden starts and stops. Do you know what to do if you are unsure of the load or material you intend to move? Don't guess. You should refer to the safety data sheets before attempting to move the load. The safety data sheets include potential hazards and how to work safely with the product. They will also include the use, storage, and handling procedures. Become familiar with the information before moving the material. If in doubt, stop and be 100% certain before handling the product. You will probably hear the advice, only approved trucks shall be used in hazardous locations. An example of this would be not operating a truck in an area containing explosives or flammable material with a truck capable of igniting these materials. Think of your environment. Be certain to use the right truck for the demands of your specific work environment. Regardless of the load, the lift truck that you operate must be compatible with the work environment and material handling requirements. When operating your lift truck, there are some other critical safety considerations to keep in mind. For example, whenever possible, face your lift truck when entering or exiting. And remember to follow the 3 points of contact rule. This means maintaining at least 3 points of contact with the truck at all times, either 2 hands and a foot, or both feet and 1 hand when either entering or exiting. This technique will help reduce slips, trips, and falls occurring on your truck. And use the handholds or other stable points, not the steering wheel, which might move. In addition, it is important to know and follow your organization's policy regarding protective equipment. The proper protective equipment for the operating environment must be used. In some operating environments, you are required to wear a safety restraint harness. If this is the case, be sure to don the harness properly. Don't get complacent. You should be trained in the proper procedures for using the specific types of fall protection, as well as for any other type of equipment you will be using. Don't guess. If you are uncertain, check the manual for specific instructions. While specific information will vary depending on the manufacturer of the harness, here are some key points to consider. Only trained or qualified personnel should use the harness. Before using the harness, inspect the straps, stitching, and D-rings. Follow the manufacturer's advice for donning the harness. After donning the harness, check that the shoulder straps are adjusted properly, the buckles are secure, and the harness is snug and comfortable. Experienced operators have found the following coaching points effective in reducing risks while operating around pedestrians and other operators. These coaching points are referred to as SCC. The S is for scanning and means looking all around your truck, including above and below for potential hazards. And remember, blind corners are called that for a reason. Don't be fooled by the instruction, "Look in the direction of travel." Make it a habit to frequently glance from side to side, as well as to the front. This is especially true when operating in reverse. Note how this operator looks before moving the truck. The first C is for cushion of safety and refers to the area around the truck. Try to keep this area free of product, other equipment, and any pedestrians. Note how this operator positions the truck with plenty of clearance to either side, reducing the chances of striking any equipment. In addition, this operator spots the change in the surface and approaches straight on instead of at an angle. Doing so will help prevent the forks from hitting the surface and avoid damaging the cargo while moving a load. If a potential hazard appears in your cushion of safety, to either side, overhead, underneath, or especially in front, stop until the potential hazard no longer exists or can be avoided. The second C is for communicating. Ask yourself how you can communicate when using your lift truck. Certainly the horn, lights, hand signals, and the movement of your truck can all be used to communicate your approach and position. Keep this acronym SCC in mind when operating in your environment. Question number 2.
I only operate on flat and even surfaces. Do I have to wear a seatbelt?
Answer number 2. If seatbelts are installed on the truck, they must be worn at all times. Coaching reminders. Use the 3 points of contact rule. Practice using SCC. Session 3. Picking up the load. Regardless of the type of load you are going to move, there are a few safety considerations to keep in mind. Do you have the right truck to perform your task? Also, remember to only pick up a load that is stable and within the load capacity of the truck. If the load is not stable, correct the situation before proceeding. Do not try to compensate by just moving more slowly. Unstable loads must be secured before picking up the load. In some cases, you may have to rearrange, wrap, or tie down the load. Depending on the type of product you are moving, you may not know the exact weight of the material. Do not move material that might exceed the load capacity of the truck. If the load does exceed the capacity of the truck, you must either break it down or use a truck with a heavier load capacity. Built-in scales are very useful in determining if a load is within the capacity of the truck. Note the posted signage in this case. They are excellent reminders to match the right truck with the proper load capacity. Look at these other signs. All of them are there to make the environment safer for equipment operators and those on foot. In addition, be certain to check out what you are handling. If the load includes hazardous material, be sure to understand the specific handling instructions and to follow your organization's procedures. If you are unsure, don't move the load. Instead, check with your supervisor before proceeding. Also, keep the load low. A good rule of thumb is to raise the load about 4 inches above the ground surface. Keep in mind, however, that you may have to adjust this depending on your environment. For example, if you're traveling on rough terrain or over speed bumps, etc. When you approach the load, check that the forks are adjusted properly for the width of the load. If you have to exit the truck, use the 3 points of contact technique and do so facing the truck. Then, adjust the forks for the width of the load. Check that the load is secure and check behind to make sure you will not catch anything to the rear or puncture any other product or material. Try to approach the load as straight on as possible to avoid damaging or knocking over the load. Keep the mast vertical and move forward until the forks are all the way in, so the load is resting against the carriage. Lift the load only high enough to clear the surface, and then tilt the mast slightly back. These concepts apply to a variety of special situations. In this case, the operator is working on a narrow aisle reach truck. As he arrives at the pickup site, he stops completely and turns the truck to square up with the pallet before beginning to lift the forks. Avoid elevating the forks while turning or maneuvering the truck into position. Once at the proper level, he approaches the pallet straight on. He inserts the forks as far as possible by moving his truck before using his reach mechanism. This assures that when he picks up the pallet, his truck will be as close to the load as possible. After picking up the pallet and lifting it only far enough to clear the rack, he first pulls the pallet to his truck and then slowly backs far enough to clear the racks. Then, he lowers the pallet all the way down to the proper height before turning and moving with the load. When operating a side loader, position the truck so the forks are even with the pallet you intend to pick up. Once at a pickup location, do not start to raise the cage until you are fully stopped at the proper location. Next, raise the forks to the correct height. Extend the forks fully into the pallet and lift the pallet only high enough to clear the rack. Then remove the pallet fully from the rack and slowly lower it to about 4 inches from the floor. Look at this operator and the specific techniques being used to pick up this roll of paper. Note how this operator rotates the roll to reduce the chance of a roll-off. This is a perfect example of adapting safe practices to a unique situation. If you operate in and around other transport vehicles, such as straight trucks, tractor trailers, or railroad cars, special attention may be required. Your responsibilities go beyond just loading and unloading when dealing with these types of vehicles. When working around trucks at a dock, be certain to stay well away from the leading edge. When setting the dock plate, make certain it is secured and meets the rated load capacity of the lift truck. This capacity includes the weight of the truck plus the load. You must also check the floor of the truck itself for wet areas, weaknesses, or holes. If weaknesses or holes do exist, do not enter the area. Even an empty lift truck is heavy enough to go through a weakened floor. In the case of excessive product spills, follow established procedures for proper cleanup. You should also check the condition of the floor from outside as well. Before doing so, check that the brakes are set and the wheels are chocked to prevent movement during loading and unloading. When the tractor is disconnected from the trailer, check that the trailer is supported properly by the jack stands. The jack stands should be positioned under the nose of the trailer to prevent upending, and they should be adjusted so they fit tightly under the frame of the trailer. Once the trailer is secure, check the entire length of the floor to be certain it is in good condition and can support the weight of your lift truck. Where vehicle restraint systems with warning lights are used, the lift truck operator is required to visually observe safe engagement of these mechanisms to make sure the trailer or truck is secured, to prevent movement or upending during loading and unloading. Do not rely on the lights. Visually check it out. If you work around railroad cars, remember the following. Be certain that brakes are set, wheels are blocked, dock plate is secured, forming a smooth joint between the dock and the car. The floor surface of the car is in good shape. With a railroad car, you may need bumper blocks or deraillers to protect your area of operation. Question number 3.
I operate different types of trucks. Do I have to be trained on each one?
Answer number 3. If an operator will operate different types of lift trucks, then training must be provided to include the unique characteristics of each type of truck. Coaching reminders. Keep the load low. Stay within the load capacity. Only move stable loads. Session 4. Moving the truck. Earlier, we discussed the importance of SCC. To be effective, you should incorporate these concepts into the daily operation of your truck. Remember that scanning refers to looking all around, not just to the front or in the direction that you are traveling. You must be on the lookout for other equipment as well, including lift trucks, or even others on foot who might be approaching at various angles. In warehouse situations, be certain to scan above, below, and to either side, looking through racks whenever possible. Think of other areas where you operate, such as intersections and blind corners, where others may not be aware of your position. In these areas, be proactive by slowing, sounding the horn, and preparing to stop if necessary. It might be helpful to think of how many times you were surprised by other lift trucks or others on foot. This could be a sign that you were not aware of the activities around you. In some locations, lights are installed to give you an early warning that others are approaching. But remember, it is your responsibility to be sure your path ahead is clear. Let's apply the SCC concepts to other situations. For example, think about how you can maximize your cushion of safety as you move the truck to increase the distance between your truck and other potential hazards. Here, as the operator approaches a corner, he slows, scans in all directions, sounds the horn, and proceeds with caution. Also, he continues to pay attention to signs or safety mirrors that are in the area. Don't forget the horn when you want to communicate with others. Remember, though, that the horn is no substitute for slowing down or stopping. When driving your personal vehicle, you know that it's critical to follow another vehicle at a safe distance. Do you know what the recommended following distance is for lift truck operators? Your following distance should be at least 3 truck lengths. Note the phrase, at least. Remember to increase your following distance in congested situations, when going down an incline, and in areas or conditions that are less than ideal, such as when there is moisture, oil, or grease on the floor, or when traveling on gravel surfaces. If you are in an area with reduced traction, slow down. Increase your following distance when following another lift truck. Pay particular attention in areas where other workers are present. They may be concentrating on their tasks and not realize your location. Use your horn to announce your position well before you reach them, and make sure they acknowledge your approach before proceeding. Remember, the reason you are scanning is to spot potentially hazardous areas and situations. These may include areas where material has been placed in an unusual location, and areas with blind spots, limited visibility, or hidden aisles. As you approach these areas, slow down and be on the lookout for other lift trucks or pedestrians who may not see or hear you coming. Your scanning should also pick up objects that may be overhead, such as overhead doorway sills, sprinkler systems, heating units, or piping systems. Potential hazards can be at eye level, but others could be much higher. Your scan should also spot objects in your path that might make passing hazardous. Don't take chances by attempting to maneuver around these objects. Instead, stop in a safe area and take time to clear your path. Also, don't you become the hazard by parking in areas where you might block others from traveling safely. Avoid leaving your truck in front of safety equipment or close to intersections or blind corners. Now let's look at an area that requires additional safety considerations. When approaching railroad tracks, approach diagonally whenever possible. Doing so will reduce the chance of the load becoming unstable as you cross. Also, when working on ramps, approach them straight on and, as with all grades, keep your speed very low. Stay away from the edge of the ramp. Remember to adjust the height of the load as necessary. On a sit-down truck without a load, travel so that the forks are downgrade. This puts the heavy weight on the back of the truck upgrade. If you must temporarily stop on an incline, chalk the wheels. Do not permanently park on a ramp or incline. Question number 4.
I only operate the truck a few times a year. Do I have to be trained?
Answer number 4. Yes. Any employee who operates a powered industrial truck must be trained, regardless of how infrequently he or she operates the truck. Coaching reminders. Communicate with others. Scan the area. Be aware of blind spots. Session 5. Setting down the load and special considerations. There are some key instructional points to consider when setting down a load, regardless of the type of truck you operate. Scan the area, including overhead, and be certain nothing will interfere with setting down the load. Also, be certain that the destination, whether it is flooring or racks, can safely hold the weight of your load. Approach the area slowly and straight on. Abrupt movements can cause product to shift or even fall off. Avoid elevating or lowering the forks while maneuvering the truck into position. When operating a powered pallet truck, it is important to use safe operating techniques. Even though you are not placing loads on a high rack, you must follow specific procedures. Drive backwards so the load does not block your view. Make sure the pallet is entirely out of the way. Scan for other workers and other trucks as you maneuver. And sound your horn to warn others. When loading a trailer or railroad car, remember to distribute the weight evenly and to put heavier loads on the bottom and lighter loads on top. Working with a spotter. If you must travel with a load that obstructs your view, be certain to use a spotter. Beforehand, agree on hand signals, especially the signal for stop. The spotter should be positioned out of your path of travel. If for any reason you lose sight of the spotter, stop until you are certain of the spotter's position. Parking. Try to park or temporarily stop in areas where you will not create a potential hazard. Think of hazardous locations in your own workplace and avoid parking in these areas. Always try to minimize the risk of injury or product damage. Avoid parking near elevators, stairs, ramps, doorways, at the end of aisles, or near emergency equipment such as eye wash stations. If working outside, be aware of roadways that are being used by others. In addition, be especially aware of others that may not be familiar with the work environment, such as visitors and guests. If you work around railroad tracks, stay at least 8 feet away from the center of the tracks or 6 feet away from the closest track. Re-energizing the truck. There are specific guidelines for refueling or re-energizing lift trucks. Before beginning any refueling or re-energizing procedures, be certain to read and follow the manufacturer's recommendations and your organization's policies regarding refueling or re-energizing. While these procedures vary according to the type of lift truck you operate, there are some general safety precautions that apply regardless of the truck. Wear the appropriate personal protective equipment that is provided. The truck should be unloaded, forks or other attachments should be lowered to the floor, and the parking brake should be set. The engine must be turned off. The operator must be off of the truck. Depending upon how your truck is powered, there are additional recommendations that you should be aware of when re-energizing your truck. For electric trucks, the operator must be trained on how to handle the battery. The charging area must have a working emergency eye wash station. The charging area must have adequate ventilation. Smoking must be prohibited in the charging area, and the area should be posted "No smoking." Follow all other specific instructions from your organization. For LPG trucks, avoid refueling and storing LPG tanks near sources of heat. Check the tank for dents, gouges, and other damage that could weaken the tank. Check fuel lines for cracks or excessive wear. Handle the LPG tanks with care. Blind spots. Earlier, we discussed blind spots as you approach the end of an aisle or in other areas where your view may be obstructed. However, there is another area that many times is not recognized as a blind spot. This is the area that is created by a structural component of the truck itself. Look at this situation. With a quick glance, the operator might miss the person on foot. Be certain your operating area is 100% clear. Question number 5.
I don't do well on written tests. Do I have to be tested?
Answer number 5. The training standard does not specifically require testing. However, some method of evaluation is necessary. Evaluation can be done in several ways. Observing the operator using the truck. A discussion with the operator. A performance test. Verification of previous training.
Pedestrian safety. You should know that the lift truck operators in your organization, regardless of the type of truck they operate, have been trained in safe operating procedures. However, to reduce the likelihood of injuries related to lift truck operation, there is another important factor to consider, namely, others who work or walk near lift trucks. As a pedestrian, how can you help to reduce lift truck-related injuries? It's important to realize the many safety issues a lift truck operator faces in everyday operation, such as the weight and stability of the load, picking up loads safely, moving the load while accounting for the rear end swing of the truck, making sure the load does not hit fixed objects in front, to either side, and above the truck, and safely setting the load down at its destination. In addition, the operator must be prepared for other hazards, such as mechanical equipment, as well as pedestrians walking or working in unexpected locations. As a pedestrian, you can play an important role in lift truck safety by keeping in mind the following considerations. It's important to realize that lift trucks turn from the rear. Because of this, it is important for others working around the lift truck to give the truck a wide berth by using designated walkways. In areas where walkways are not designated, for example in outdoor work environments, try to visualize an area around the truck like this. Safety experts call this area a cushion of safety. When working around lift trucks, stay out of this cushion of safety. Doing so will help reduce the chances of injury. Just as you have blind spots in your personal vehicle, lift trucks have similar blind spots. These blind spots may be due to the structure of the lift truck, the load being carried, or fixed objects around the truck. You should be aware that lift truck operators have been trained to compensate for these blind spots by reducing their speed, stopping if necessary, and warning others by sounding the truck's horn. When you hear a horn, you should interpret it as a signal of an approaching lift truck, not a negative signal. If your work environment has mirrors, use them to spot approaching lift trucks. This early warning is critical for pedestrian safety because lift trucks may not be able to stop quickly. Your organization may have signage placed in strategic locations. These signs are for both the lift truck operator and your benefit. They may warn of specific hazards or serve as reminders to use caution in the workplace. Depending on the type of work environment you frequently work in, you may see a lift truck being used to lift a pallet for stacking purposes or to lift a safety platform. Stay clear of these areas and don't walk beneath the raised material. Be aware that product or other equipment may fall off the lift. Lift truck operators are not permitted to carry any riders or passengers on the truck unless another seat is provided for an additional worker. If you have occasion to use equipment such as ladders, be aware of where to position yourself. Try to avoid areas where lift truck operators will have difficulty spotting you, or where lift trucks frequently travel. For example, ladders placed around blind corners are difficult to spot until it's too late. Arguing after the fact whose fault the accident was is not helpful in preventing injuries. Your concern should be for preventing injuries, not who caused the accident. Let's review some of the key points that you can follow to help keep your workplace safe. Do you follow all in-plant safety instructions? Remember, they are posted for your safety. Do you walk and work only in designated areas? Do you use the safety mirrors? Do you stay clear of lift trucks and avoid walking under raised forks or loads? Do you clean up areas and avoid leaving material on the floor or ground surfaces? as a pedestrian. You are a very important partner in keeping the workplace safe and accident-free.
Creating a safe work environment is everyone's responsibility. As the lift truck operator, you play a very important role in setting a good example for other coworkers and other equipment operators. By practicing these coaching points, you will go a long way in protecting yourself and others in your work environment. Regardless of the type of truck you operate and your work environment, remember these critical coaching points. 1. Scanning all around your truck, including above and below for hazards. 2. Maintaining a cushion of safety surrounding your truck that you should try to keep free of other trucks, fixed objects, and other workers. 3. Communicating with others by positioning your truck to make yourself more visible and by sounding your horn to alert others. By incorporating the safe operating practices included in this course, you will contribute to improving the safety of your workplace and to reducing the likelihood of injury to yourself and others. For each of the following 10 situations, answer true if you agree with the statement or false if you disagree with the statement. In addition, be prepared to discuss your response. Question number 1. You should try to keep the load about 4 inches from the surface. True or false? Question number 2. When your view is obstructed by the load, you should travel in reverse. True or false? Question number 3. Before entering a trailer with your lift truck, you do not have to check the floor for breaks and weak areas. True or false? Question number 4. When approaching a hazardous location, like this intersection, you should slow, sound the horn, and stop if necessary. True or false? Question number 5. When traveling behind another lift truck, you should follow about 1 truck length. True or false? Question number 6. The higher you lift the load, the more unstable it becomes. True or false? Question number 7. Your lift truck must be inspected before the shift starts. True or false? Question number 8. You should not use your horn because it will scare others. True or false? Question number 9. You should turn off power to the truck when the truck is unattended. True or false? Question number 10. Avoid parking your truck near emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers or eye wash stations. True or false?